Biman Bangladesh Airlines, the flag carrier of none other than Bangladesh, is an airline that I've been wanting to cover for quite some time. However, I never found a good reason to do so until now. Biman recently announced intentions to resume service to the United States after 17 years. While this is no doubt exciting news, there are certain roadblocks that could hinder and potentially prevent the airline from ever reaching this goal. In this video, we'll discuss what these obstacles are and why Biman is even considering resuming service to the US. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and I hope you'll enjoy. Before jumping into more recent news, let's quickly talk about the history of Biman's service to the United States. Biman has only served one city in the US, that being New York JFK with its fleet of McDonnell Douglas DC-10s. The carrier inaugurated service between Dhaka and JFK in December of 1993. This service initially had technical stopovers in New Delhi, Dubai, and Amsterdam, but was later adjusted to just Dubai and Brussels, with the return flight to Dhaka only stopping in Brussels. Despite New York being Biman's farthest and most prestigious destination, the route caused Biman to consistently suffer significant losses. As a result of heavy losses, Biman reduced service to just one flight a week and rerouted it via Manchester in 2006. Manchester was chosen precisely because of its large Bengali expatriate community, and Biman hoped to capture much of this demand that way. Now, recall that this was 2006 and Biman was still flying old DC-10 aircraft into the US. The FAA had time and time again warned Biman to replace these triholers by December 2005 because, in their opinion, they were inadequately equipped to safely cross the Atlantic. Despite this warning, Biman did not retire the DC-10, and this led to the FAA placing a Category 2 rating on Bangladesh's aviation industry. This rating means that a country's aviation industry's safety oversights are not up to International Civil Aviation Organization or ICAO standards. Restrictions placed on Biman by this rating also meant that it could not make changes to the flight routes. As such, Biman was fined for changing the route to stop in Manchester and was forced to switch the stopover back to Brussels. Eventually, Biman finally cut service to JFK on July 29, 2006, a route that, according to the airline, had been causing them a loss of $80,000 per flight. As a bit of an epilogue, Biman continued flying the DC-10 for another 8 years and was the last passenger operator of the plane. The final revenue flight didn't take place until February 20, 2014, with DC-10 Sierra 2 Alpha Charlie Romeo flying from Dhaka to Birmingham, England via Kuwait City. Biman operated 9 special aviation enthusiast scenic flights in Birmingham for the next few days before the aircraft, appropriately named New Era, was ferried back to Dhaka to be scrapped. Now let's transition back to the present day. Biman has since modernized its wide-body fleet with Boeing 777-300ERs and Boeing 787s. Recently, the carrier submitted an application to the United States Department of Transportation with hopes of resuming direct service to New York. The key word here is hopes, and this is the first obstacle keeping Biman from coming back to the US. The Department of Transportation has yet to approve Biman's application, and until a decision is made, we can't say for sure what will become of Biman's proposed US service. The second obstacle ties in very closely with the first one. As mentioned earlier, Bangladesh still maintains a Category 2 rating by the FAA. This rating could have an impact on whether or not Biman's application gets approved. However, given Bangladesh's rapid modernization and recent history, especially with its aviation industry, Biman hopes that as it continues to work with the FAA, that Bangladesh will be upgraded to Category 1. This category means that an airline from a specific country operates in accordance with ICAO standards and can operate its own aircraft into US airports. So those were the first 2 obstacles. Before discussing the third one, let's first see what Biman's plans are with resuming service to the US. If Biman's application is approved, it hopes to commence service to New York by as early as the summer of 2024. Biman wants to start 5 weekly direct flights between Dhaka and an unspecified airport in the New York City area, either JFK or Newark, New Jersey. The flights will operate both ways via Izmir, Turkey. Izmir will only serve as a technical stopover so the aircraft can be refueled. Biman does not have Fifth Freedom rights to transport passengers solely between New York and Izmir, or vice versa. Why exactly Biman chose Izmir of all places and not Istanbul, for example, has not been specified. A similar setup is already in effect for Biman's flights to Toronto, Canada. Biman currently serves Toronto 5 times a week with its Boeing 787-9. However, because a non-stop flight would be too expensive to operate, the flight makes a stopover both ways to refuel in Istanbul. Again, Biman is not allowed to fly passengers solely between Canada and Turkey. If service to New York was to be approved, Biman would operate the route using its fleet of Boeing 787s. The Bengali flag carrier operates 6 Dreamliners comprised of 4 787-8s and 2 787-9s. In addition to New York, Biman is considering services to Boston, Washington Dulles, Houston, Dallas, and Los Angeles, all of which have sizable Bengali American communities. In my opinion, the fact that Detroit is nowhere to be seen on this list is pretty surprising. The reason I say that is because as of 2019, the Detroit metro area had the second highest number of Bangladeshi Americans. Boston, in comparison, had the 10th highest. If Biman's application is approved by the Department of Transportation, even then it will take a while for the carrier to expand into the US. This is because Biman's wide-body fleet of just 4 777s and 6 787s is too insignificant to support such a large expansion. Biman can't even maintain daily service to existing long-haul destinations like London, Manchester, Toronto, and Tokyo, so if they were to ever expand into the US, they would surely need way more planes. This is a scenario where the Airbus A350 would come in handy. I only bring this up because during the Paris Air Show a few months back, Biman was rumored to have placed an order for 10 Airbus A350s, however, this was never confirmed. If Biman does officially order the A350 in the future, we could definitely see these being deployed to the US, again assuming Biman's application goes through. If you recall from earlier in the video, you'll remember that Biman was forced to cut JFK service back in 2006, primarily because of heavy losses. This is actually the third obstacle that Biman faces when it comes to resuming service to the US. Again, Biman operates a pretty small fleet of wide-body planes, and even setting aside one 787, for example, to only fly between Dhaka and New York would prove to be very costly. Not only this, but Biman isn't even expected to turn a profit on this route either. An airline network planner who chose to remain anonymous noted that Biman's New York route could lose up to $34 million each year. This is taking into account both cargo and a 5-weekly frequency. That's a huge loss year after year that Biman should not risk. Furthermore, the New York market is heavily saturated with airlines that already serve Bangladesh with one-stop itineraries. JFK alone is served by Etihad, Emirates, Qatar, Turkish, Egypt Air, and Kuwait Airways, all of whom operate regular services to Dhaka, with Qatar Airways beginning service to Chittagong in March 2024. Unless Biman can somehow offer non-stop service in the future, they won't be at much of a competitive advantage over any of these carriers. A few months ago, I made a video about PIA's joint venture with Turkish Airlines. One of the main talking points of this video was how PIA was able to code-share with Turkish, so that passengers could first fly PIA to Istanbul and then connect onto Turkish Airlines flights bound for places like Europe or North America. The point I want to make here is if Biman is already utilizing Istanbul as a refueling stopover for its Toronto service, then why not serve Istanbul as a proper destination? If Biman is so ambitious to get its foot in the door when it comes to the US, perhaps starting a similar codeshare or joint venture with Turkish Airlines, like what PIA is doing, could be one way of doing so. Now, Biman has already proposed that its New York service will stop over in Izmir. Why? Again, I have no idea. But what if they completely scrapped Izmir as a stopover city and instead began regular service to Istanbul? This way, instead of having to worry about US approval, losses, etc., they can simply code share with Turkish Airlines. A code share with Turkish Airlines would see Turkish continuing to operate their US flights. However, with this agreement, Biman would be able to market these flights as their own, despite being operated by Turkish in reality, and in turn, generate some revenue. Istanbul has proved itself to be a massive connection point, especially between South Asia and North America. Aside from PIA, Turkish Airlines also recently established a huge partnership with Indian low-cost airline Indigo, who now operate 777-300ERs between Delhi, Mumbai, and Istanbul. If Indigo and PIA have seen continued success with their Turkish Airlines partnerships, then why can't Biman establish a similar partnership? This seems like a rather outlandish idea, but considering how small Biman is on an international scale, I think first setting up a partnership with an established international carrier like Turkish Airlines would be a good starting point for them when it comes to resuming US services. It's no doubt that Biman Bangladesh Airlines returning to the United States, more specifically New York, would be amazing news for the Bengali American community. But until further action is taken on both Biman's application and Bangladesh's aviation safety rating, answering the question of whether or not Biman will return to the States is all speculation. Let me know what you think of Biman's plans and whether or not they will be successful. As always, if you enjoyed the video, do not forget to leave a like and also subscribe if you're new to this channel. I did also write an article on this topic for Aero Explorer, so if you're interested, then why not check that out as well. And for those wondering, yes, a PIA privatization video is still in the works, and I'm really hoping to get that video out sometime within the next few weeks. But until then, thank you all so much for watching, take care, and I will see you next time.